Welcome to Andile Mngxitama podcast. We are continuing to engage our viewers, and thanks for subscribing, those who have. And we ask you, if you haven't subscribed, to subscribe. In this way, we're able to follow each other and you get notification for coming podcasts. We are pleased to announce that we already reached 3,000 subscribers. We need to hit that 20,000 by December. So please click on the subscribe button so that we reach our target. In this episode, we're going to deal with the razzmatazz of South African politics. The up-and-coming, brilliant politician. A man who captivates his audiences and mesmerizes the South African media. I'm talking about Julius Juju Malema. Well, you know, I have worked with this man and I have developed some other insights into his politics and what he represents in the South African political space. Of course, before I worked with him closely, I had already written an essay, Is Malema a Mugabe?, in which I broke down his political project. And one of the key moments in that essay is where I say he is using a toy gun to pickpocket white monopoly capital. He is not going to disarticulate the power of white capital, the capitalist order, but he wants to insert himself into that arrangement as a proper neo-colonialist. You know, Frantz Fanon describes neo-colonialism as run by middlemen, those who take over from the colonialists but maintain the status quo. They use politics, they use rhetoric, they use all manner of scheming to attain power. But once they are in power, they then perpetuate the same system. I had a meeting with Jacob Zuma, almost a whole night meeting, where I really got to understand where he comes from, and I got a better appreciation of just how brilliant Jacob Zuma himself is. And I asked him about Julius, and he started by laughing. And then he said, he is a formidable opponent. I mean, that is directly from Jacob Zuma. He said, Julius is a formidable opponent. And this is at the time when Julius was organizing with the opposition to get rid of Jacob Zuma. And we know that Winnie Mandela also had described Julius Malema as the future leader. So there's no doubt that Julius is destined to high office. It is possible after 2024 he might become the deputy president of the country through teaming up with the Democratic Alliance, giving the DA political power, and then in that coalition arrangement, he will become the deputy president of the country. I describe Julius as a gifted, hard-working politician, a smart and decisive leader with impeccable sense of the symbolic, and possesses an impressive rhetorical flair and has a photographic memory. Julius, we know when he stands there and he addresses people, you will even believe in what he says. That is his rhetorical gifts. And his memory, his mind, it's incredible. You know, we're driving sometime when we're working with him, and he remembered some old woman who was sitting in front in the meeting. And he said, we must go see this old woman. And he does that. He remembers very detailed situations, and he's always able to mobilize that to push his agenda. Take, the member of parliament from this place where people were murdered by Ramaphosa, Marikana Mamsonti. He identified her amongst the community, and he knows that she's highly respected, and then brings her into the fold. And in this way, the whole base of Marikana supports the economic freedom fighters. So he is a proper political operator. And as I say, he's got a photographic memory. He remembers things. And he is a gifted rhetorician. He is rhetorically highly gifted. Now, these gifts are great to create a pole for revolutionary breakthrough, but are qualities that can be monetarized for cash in service of reaction when they are possessed by a reactionary leader. So, in any revolution, you need a leader that people can gravitate towards. And Julius has provided that pole. I mean, the most affected youth in this country, those who are marginalized and those who are willing to fight, look to him in belief that his rhetorics answer the question and organizes for a war. I argue even today that the young people who are ready to fight are in the EFF. If Julius was to call for a revolution tomorrow, it will happen. That is how much the youth that are following him believe in him, but also that's how much that youth is ready to fight. I know I was there. You know, in some of our marches, you could just feel the energy, the revolutionary energy which is there. And we know that Julius says, look, it's either you get an unled revolution or you give us a chance to pacify the masses. You know? So that is his objective. Let us listen to what he says himself about what is the objective of the EFF.
Oppressed, don't feel represented.
Okay.
They are going to come to me and you. Especially ourselves who stay in the suburbs.
Right.
So somebody must make them feel accommodated. Somebody must be seen to be fighting for them, so that they don't stand up on their own unled and then create anarchy. So the EFF closes that gap and says to them, don't be that angry, we're attending to your issues.
There you are. You have it from the horse's mouth. Julius says he can see the youth are unhappy, they are angry, they are agitated, they want revolution. And that revolution will be unled. And an unled revolution will destroy the status quo, will destroy what we have today. And he even says, he himself, as somebody who lives in Sandton, will not be safe. So he says that the EFF comes in and he says to this angry, highly mobilized, ready to fight young people, hang 10. Something is going to happen. So the objective of the EFF is to hold the revolution and then turn that revolutionary energy into a bargaining chip to negotiate with white monopoly capital to get some benefits for the leadership. So basically, the revolutionary energy is being monetarized, is being turned into a commodity for sale, exchange, and bargaining with the powers that be. Now, that is the genius of a salesman who's using political capital to negotiate and convert it into actual capital for himself. This is Julius the businessman. His business is turning anger, organizing it, and taming it. In fact, you know, when he led that 50,000 march to the JSE, one of the things that he said was, And immediately he then went to see Robert Renwick in London in 2015. One of the things that he prized himself on was our march was totally peaceful. So he brought 50,000 angry, hungry young people, but tamed them into a peaceful force that comes into Sandton, does not break a thing. Wait for leadership to go into a team meeting with the representatives of the JSE, get whatever concessions that he got, and he left peacefully. That is his capacity to tame the rage of the revolutionary youth. And he is aware of this, and that's why when he speaks this revolutionary rhetoric which touches the souls and the hearts of these young people who are ready to fight. But he is not about fighting. He is about organizing anger to tame it, and as we say, to basically demobilize young people. Now, another key trait of Julius is a master of symbolism. This guy understands the power of symbolism. You know, EFF was launched on the 26th of July, which is the same date with Che and Fidel's victory. So he associated himself with the July movement, the biggest revolution that happened and the longest and sustained revolution that happened. He associated himself with that revolutionary movement. We also know that he visited Mugabe at the height of the land reclamation program. Another time he was able to associate himself with somebody who was celebrated throughout the world as a revolutionary statesman. And through his association with Mugabe in this way, he then takes that symbolism of a revolutionary. Not only that, he went to Venezuela at a time when Chavez was running a revolutionary program. And he visited Chavez and again associated himself symbolically with a revolutionary program, and therefore putting himself in the position to be viewed as a revolutionary. But you know how he got into the Steve Biko symbolism. He said to me, where can I get a Steve Biko t-shirt? You see, he understood that he doesn't have to say anything about Biko. Just get the image, put the image on himself, and that's it. So he was in this way, of course, decimating and appropriating any revolutionary symbolism towards himself. And one of the things that he did rhetorically, which basically convinced some of us to go with him, was when he said, initially he was saying land expropriation. So I wrote a criticism and said, yeah, he's talking about expropriation so that they can pay compensation. He said, he turned and he said, land expropriation without compensation. That closed the debate. Now, what would be our disagreement with him on the land question? So we went with him. Of course, we know later on, EFF changed its position on land expropriation. Go look into their founding manifesto. That principle, that cardinal pillar of land expropriation without compensation, has now been amended to read land expropriation without compensation in use. They have added in use. That provides for this selling out position where he was able to say to white farmers in 2015 again that EFF is not interested to expropriate land which is productively used. We can listen to this clip where he addresses white farmers in Paarl.
The EFF believes that we need the most effective mechanism to redistribute the land into the hands of all South Africans. And what do we mean by that? We mean that government must be the custodian of the land. And the land that is abandoned and is idling should be expropriated to the benefit of all. And as long as that land is expropriated for public purpose and public interest, then it must be given a go-ahead. So if there is a farm which is productive, and we know that that land is used for agricultural purpose, we don't have to interfere with the production in that piece of land. We ought to protect it.
There you are. Julius says to these white farmers, don't worry. We don't want to take your land. We only want that land which you, white farmers, don't want. And that is reflected in the policy of the EFF, where they say land expropriation without compensation in use. So when land is in use, of course, it will not be expropriated. Now in South Africa, really, 80% of the land is designated agricultural land. And 20% of that land is in high production because of the high quality of the land. South Africa is semi-arid. Most of the land in South Africa is not so suitable for high intense agricultural production. You have other uses for that land. So Julius simply says to white people when he speaks to them, I guarantee you, EFF does not want to take your land. EFF only will take the land that you don't want. Reject land. And then, of course, when he comes out and he talks to black people in those massive rallies, bewitching rallies, he talks about the black child. We're going to take the land and redistribute to you. When he speaks to white people, landowners, he guarantees them that land will not be taken away from them. And in fact, after that meeting in Paarl, they were taking selfies with him and saying that he's a reasonable man. We also know that Renwick, in that book of his, Stealing a Country, he makes the point that EFF, when he engages them, he did not get the sense that they are serious about nationalization. He said they are not serious about nationalization. All they want is some participation of blacks in the economy. That's what Reverend Renwick says after meeting with them. But let's go back to this man's incredible capacity for symbolism. You know, the 1 year when he built the house in Nkandla, next to Zuma. I mean, we know that Jacob Zuma has built this massive, beautiful homestead. Of course, it is in a rural village, and those villagers live in poorly designed and developed houses. Julius Genius said, no, we're going to build a house next to Jacob Zuma. We're going to build a proper house for those people. Because, I mean, the message communicated, you don't need to be a genius, is to say Jacob lives well, but he doesn't care for the poor. We, EFF, care for the poor. And that is why we built this house for this poor person. But where the genius of that symbolism actually is here. Julius waited until the 8th of January with the ANC's January 8th rally, which of course at the time of Jacob Zuma gets the front page because stadiums are full. On that same day, Julius went to open that house, forcing therefore the media to report on the ANC's rally, on the other side, the EFF's opening up of this house. And indeed, the front pages of the Sunday newspapers were divided. In fact, I think the City Press had a clear, big front page with the ANC rally and Julius Malema's house. I'm just trying to demonstrate to you his capacity of mobilizing symbolism to advance his political project. Of course, we know that house later on fell apart, which also give you a good sense of how superficial his political project is. If we take symbolism seriously, we show that he competes with the ANC by presenting this house and gets the frontline headlines, but the quality of the house is such that it represents the kind of, let's say, underdeveloped revolutionary politics of his. He is able to cash on the symbolism. And then his Zupta Monica, that was a brilliant turn of phrase to take Zuma and the Gupta and just to call that the Zupta arrangement. And a lot of people ran with that. Just like pay back the money. I mean, again, there, master of timing, master of symbolism. He was able to galvanize the whole nation around the call for Zuma must pay back the money. That thing trended for years, and it's still etched in the imaginations of our people. Now, I'm giving you this so that you appreciate the political genius this man is. I don't think anyone must underestimate Julius. He is a formidable opponent, as President Zuma had said to me. Julius understands politics. He was raised inside the ANC. And he also understands the black psyche. That man even says things like his security guards must beat up people when they attempt to create chaos in the rallies. He says, if you don't do that, they will overrun us. I was in a meeting where he instructed the security guys to beat up. And of course, one guy jumped inside the stadium when we had a rally in Tembisa. And I saw how the security guards charged towards him. So he's terrified of the masses. He knows the capacity of the masses. But he also knows the weakness of the masses. And he gives the masses their rhetorical food whilst holding them back from really attacking the structures of power in society. And we know that Julius has now normalized the white power and has enacted what I call politics without ideology and principles. So today we can go with Freedom Front Plus. The other day we can go with the DA. It makes no difference. And now he will go with the ANC without making sustained strategic and tactical demands which pushes a clear pro-black agenda. There is no pro-black agenda. It's power politics, right? Power politics without principles. And that is why he's able to give power to the Democratic Alliance, which is racist, represent the party of land thieves. And he matches with Freedom Front Plus, including the Freedom Front Plus racists when he did that march against Zuma. He had no qualms to go into a tactical alliance with reactionaries. I mean, that is his raison d'etre. And I say this normalizes for black people to vote for white political parties. So he is erasing ideology from our political practices. And that is why somebody like Gatyeni with his conservative pragmatism is winning the hearts as well. He's not talking about big politics of societal change. He's talking about creating jobs and running some programs on the ground for that. And our people, of course, given the ANC's failures, find that to be highly commendable. Now, I'd like us to think about Julius in this way, that Mandela sold us out in the past. Juju is going to liquidate the future. Watch what he does, not what he says. The future is under threat. Julius Malema is the threat of our future, and is the man who is literally squandering the revolutionary possibilities given the failures of the ANC. In a sense, he's almost like a loop, taking us back to 1994 ANC politics of compromise with white power to create the new South Africa, which was not new at all. Failures of the ANC brought about great sense of disappointment. And as our people leaving the ANC, they are gravitating towards this man. The man who has so much big following and is able to threaten white capital to a point where, to make last example, when he marched, or rather staged those protests at Clicks. Clicks is a big global conglomerate. It's worth billions of rands. And then he sat down with them, and then we are told that the deal is that there will be some 5 keys that are going to they will be taken to some university, and then there will be some, I don't know, was it a few thousand sanitary pads which will be given to some of our poor children. And then there was undefined commitment to local content in the intake of Clicks. Of course, none of that was followed up. The matter petted out and forgotten. Just like his threat to occupy Absa never came to be. Again, as we say, Julius is holding a toy gun that he uses from time to time against white capital to get concessions and to move those black bags of money at night. And then he stops from the threats that he makes. But I think the key thing that we must remember this man for is his capacity to mobilize young people, to mobilize the poor, the excluded, to mobilize the militant youth that want change, and then to make sure that they are press-ganged and tamed into making no further action against the system. And he benefits by threatening the system with this massive revolutionary potential. But this man, as we say, is a political player, is a political genius, in fact, and is going to engineer a move in 2014 where he's going to put himself very high up in the state system. But there will be no benefits for the excluded black majority. Julius is the threat of the future and a very formidable opponent, as President Jacob Zuma has told us. Izweletu. White monopoly capital is the actual buyer of the Zamazama gold, Zamazama produce. And it gets this very cheap because it does not pay wages. It does not have to care about safety. It does not have to care about tax. It just gets these minerals which are produced by the Zamazamas and then enter into the formal system and make super profits. The real culprits here, the real criminals, is white monopoly capital, which is making a killing out of the Zamazama economy. The Zamazamas are simply Zamazaming. However, because they operate in an illegal system, in an illegal environment, this creates massive culture of illegality